Security, get this woman out of here now. The flight attendant's voice rose loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm going to ask you one last time to leave this seat, or I will get you out. Her words carried a sharp edge, dripping with condescension. But the woman she screamed at stood there calm, in an immaculate suit, holding a first-class boarding pass like it was gold. Her voice was steady but firm. I'm not moving until you explain why my valid ticket is suddenly invalid. Samantha Williams, CEO of Williams Global Logistics, was humiliated in front of everyone. But no one expected what would happen next when the woman they thought powerless revealed who she was and demanded justice. The plane gleamed under the afternoon sun, promising a luxurious journey. Inside, plush leather seats, gold accents, and exclusivity awaited passengers. Among them was Samantha, 42, about to close the biggest deal of her career. The Tokyo expansion would put her company among the top 5 in Asia. Everything she had sacrificed was riding on this trip. She moved through O'Hare International Airport with the confidence of someone who had earned every step. A tailored black suit, leather briefcase with her presentation, and her first-class ticket secured in her purse. At the check-in counter, everything seemed normal. Staff were polite, confirmed her seat, and wished her a pleasant flight. Boarding was called at 8:00 p.m. Samantha walked toward the gate, thinking about the executives she'd meet in Tokyo and how this deal would secure her company's future. She had no idea the ticket in her purse would spark a confrontation that would shake the airline industry. She presented her first-class boarding pass and stepped onto Flight 447 to Tokyo. Her seat, 2A, was waiting. She placed her briefcase carefully, adjusting her jacket. But moments later, the flight attendant Jennifer Hayes appeared. Excuse me, ma'am, this seat is reserved. Samantha handed over her boarding pass. Jennifer frowned. I'll have to verify this. Soon, Rachel Thompson, the station manager, joined. Both women questioned her legitimacy, ignoring the valid ticket and her platinum membership record. Their tone made clear what they truly saw. Someone they didn't believe belonged there. Passengers began to whisper. Samantha stayed composed. My documents are valid. Please check your system. Jennifer, dismissive, called security. Security, get this woman out. The cabin fell silent. Samantha's calm voice carried steel. Unless you provide a reason, I am not moving. The situation escalated. Despite her composure and documentation, she was escorted off. Passengers watched in discomfort, some filming. The plane departed without her, while Samantha sat alone in the terminal, humiliated but determined. She missed the meeting in Tokyo, a blow to her career, but the true impact was only beginning. Videos spread online within hours, showing a well-dressed black woman being harassed despite proof of her ticket. Hashtags like Delta discrimination trended. Millions viewed the clips. Outrage erupted. Customers cut cards, vowed boycotts, and demanded accountability. By midnight, Delta's CEO Robert Sterling was receiving frantic calls. His crisis team gathered. Watching the footage, they saw Samantha calmly defending herself, employees ignoring facts, and racism laid bare. There was no defense. Robert knew lawsuits could cost millions, but reputational damage could cost billions. Worse, Williams Global Logistics was a $50 million client. Losing them could spark losses across dozens of connected corporations. At 2:15 a.m., Robert called Samantha. He apologized directly. She responded firmly, apologies don't undo the damage. I missed the most important meeting of my career because your staff decided I didn't look like I belonged. Robert asked how to make it right. Samantha replied, that depends if you want real change or just damage control. She demanded a full investigation, employment records of those involved, and systemic reform. Robert realized she wasn't just an angry customer. She had the power, resources, and platform to demand transformation, and she would not let it slide. While Robert scrambled at headquarters, Jennifer Hayes and Rachel Thompson were summoned to an emergency meeting at O'Hare. Airport manager Charles Davidson faced them across the table. Both insisted they'd done nothing wrong, just following procedures. Charles pulled up Samantha's profile. CEO of Williams Global Logistics. $50 million in annual contracts. Platinum Elite member, flying first class with Delta for 8 years. She wasn't trying to steal a seat, Charles said coldly. She was in the one she paid for. Rachel's face drained of color. Jennifer muttered. She looked, but stopped. Everyone knew what she meant. She looked like someone who didn't belong in first class. The silence confirmed what none dared admit aloud. The entire ordeal had been racism, plain and simple. By dawn, Samantha returned with her legal team. The conference room resembled a courtroom. On screen, Robert Sterling appeared, flanked by lawyers and PR staff. Jennifer and Rachel sat pale and tight-lipped. Samantha entered with calm authority. "Mr. Sterling, I don't need apologies. I need answers. How could your employees ignore valid ID and a confirmed ticket?" Jennifer weakly said, "I didn't know who you were." Samantha shot back, "You didn't need to know who I was. My ticket was legitimate. What was unusual about that? Unless you assumed I didn't belong because of how I looked." Jennifer fell silent. Rachel tried to shift blame, but Samantha revealed files. Jennifer had 17 prior complaints, 15 from Black or Hispanic passengers. Rachel had 12, both records ignored for years. Samantha pressed further. Delta's own files show over 300 discrimination complaints in 18 months. Most dismissed. This isn't an isolated case. It's systemic. The evidence left no room for denial. Robert finally acted. Effective immediately, Jennifer Hayes is terminated. Rachel Thompson suspended pending investigation. Jennifer's 15-year career ended instantly. Rachel's future hung by a thread, but Samantha wasn't after two scapegoats. She laid out conditions to keep her $50 million contract. Bias training for all staff. Real, external, annual, with consequences for failure. Diversity in hiring and promotions. 25% of new hires and 15% of promotions from underrepresented groups. 2 Mauer. Donation to civil rights groups. Paid immediately. Not staggered. Independent Civil Rights Ombudsman. Outside. Hire with authority to investigate and report to the board the zero tolerance policy. Any employee caught discriminating fired. Instantly. Public acknowledgement. A clear admission of what happened. And a commitment to change. Robert and his team hesitated. Costly reforms. Radical for the airline industry. But the alternative, lawsuits, boycotts, lost contracts, was worse. He agreed. Delta will meet all conditions. Samantha then added, "And I still need to reach Tokyo. Arrange a new flight. Let's see how your staff treats me now." Within hours, Delta arranged a private executive jet with its most experienced crew, led by Captain Maria Rodriguez, one of the few Latina captains in the fleet. At the gate, staff who had witnessed her humiliation now greeted her respectfully. Captain Rodriguez personally welcomed her aboard. "Miss Williams, what you experienced was shameful. I promise this flight will be different." For the first time that night, Samantha believed it. The flight was smooth, service dignified. Rodriguez even addressed passengers. "Miss Samantha Williams is with us after facing unacceptable discrimination. Delta is committed to respectful treatment of all." It was a gesture that showed accountability. In Tokyo, Samantha delivered her presentation flawlessly. The Japanese executives, already aware of her ordeal from international news, were impressed not just by her business acumen, but by her grace under fire. The deal was signed, Williams Global's largest expansion to date. In months following, Delta rolled out sweeping changes. Complaints of discrimination dropped 70% within 6 months. Customer satisfaction among minority passengers soared. The ombudsman, Angela Washington, a former civil rights attorney, reopened past cases and held staff accountable. Diversity initiatives brought fresh leadership to customer-facing roles. Other airlines, under pressure, began copying Delta's reforms. Civil rights groups benefited from Theta Nation, funding legal aid, education programs, and support for minority-owned businesses. Samantha's ordeal had sparked more than reform. It ignited a nationwide conversation. The Department of Transportation launched industry-wide investigations. Congress held hearings. New federal guidelines were drafted. Williams Global, meanwhile, grew stronger than ever. Samantha was invited to conferences, praised on magazine covers, not only for her business success, but for forcing systemic change in one of the world's toughest industries. Samantha's success was celebrated, but she never forgot the humiliation that started it all. Determined to create lasting impact, she founded the Dorothy Williams Scholarship Fund, named after her mother. It provided full college scholarships for underprivileged students in business. She contributed $1 million personally. Other business leaders soon followed. The fund offered mentorships, internships, and networks that Samantha had once lacked. In its first year, 75 students went to college who might never have dreamed it possible. 8 months later, Samantha received a letter that stunned her. It was from Jennifer Hayes, the fired flight attendant. Miss Williams, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but losing my job forced me to face my prejudice. I've been in therapy, volunteering with civil rights groups, trying to change. Thank you for holding me accountable. Samantha was surprised, but she replied with encouragement. True growth required responsibility, and Jennifer's work could help others confront their biases. 9 months after the incident, Samantha boarded a routine flight from Chicago to Los Angeles. This time everything was different. Smooth check-in, polite staff, no suspicious looks. Change had taken root. On board, she noticed a young black girl, maybe 10 years old, sitting with her grandmother and coach. The child gazed curiously toward first class, eyes full of wonder, the same way Samantha once dreamed as a child in Detroit. Samantha approached. Hi, I'm Samantha. What's your name? Destiny, the girl said shyly. That's beautiful. Want to see first class? With her grandmother's nod, Destiny followed. As Samantha showed her the cabin, the wide seats, the entertainment screens, she remembered her own childhood dreams. Destiny, she asked gently, do you know what I do? My grandma says you're the boss of a company, and you fought bad people who were mean to you. Samantha smiled. That's close. I'm a CEO. I move goods all around the world. It's like running a giant puzzle. But it started with nothing. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. We didn't always have enough for rent or food. I grew up in Detroit and sometimes wondered if I'd ever even fly on a plane, let alone sit here. Destiny's eyes widened. This elegant, successful woman had once been like her. The most important thing I learned, Samantha continued, is that where you start doesn't determine where you finish. You can achieve anything with focus and work. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Destiny confessed she wanted to be an aerospace engineer, but that some classmates said girls couldn't. Samantha felt fire rise in her chest. Those kids are wrong. Some of history's greatest engineers were women, and in my company, many brilliant women were once told they couldn't succeed either. She gave Destiny a business card. When you graduate high school, call this number. We'll make sure you get the support to pursue engineering. Destiny clutched the card like treasure. You really think I can? Samantha's eyes softened. I don't just think you can, but promise me, when you succeed, help the next little girl with dreams like yours. I promise, Destiny whispered. Her grandmother, teary-eyed, thanked Samantha. You have no idea what this means to us. Seeing someone who looks like her in first class, respected, shows her what's possible. As the plane landed, Samantha reflected. The humiliation she had endured became the seed for sweeping change. Delta had implemented reforms. Congress had written new guidelines. Civil rights groups were funded. Students had scholarships. Even her harassers were confronting their prejudices. Most importantly, the next generation, like Destiny, would grow up with fewer barriers. Samantha carried a gift Destiny gave her, a drawing of a rocket ship with Destiny's space company written in crayon. She slipped it into her briefcase. To her, it symbolized everything. Success isn't just about your own destination. It's about making the path wider for others to follow. The fight against discrimination wasn't over. But thanks to one woman's courage, the skies were a little fairer, and a young girl somewhere was daring to believe her dreams were possible. The impact of Samantha's stand rippled far beyond Delta Airlines. Other corporations took note. Airlines, hotels, banks, and logistics firms all faced pressure to review their treatment of minority clients. Civil rights groups cited her case as proof that discrimination wasn't isolated but systemic. News programs replayed the viral videos for weeks, contrasting Samantha's calm dignity with the dismissive hostility of the staff. She became a symbol of resilience and change, interviewed on national television, and invited to testify before Congress. During hearings, she spoke bluntly. It should not take a CEO with resources to demand respect. Every passenger, whether rich or poor, deserves fair treatment. What happened to me happens to countless others, unseen. This is about building systems that stop it before it happens. Her words carried weight. Inspiring new regulations requiring airlines to log and investigate discrimination complaints transparently. Meanwhile, Williams Global Logistics surged forward. The Tokyo expansion doubled their revenue, making them one of the top 5 logistics companies in Asia. New contracts in Singapore and South Korea followed. Samantha became a sought-after speaker at international conferences, but she never let fame distract her from the mission of reform. She told her staff often, "Our success is not just measured in profit, but in the paths we open for others." Her scholarship fund expanded rapidly. Tech companies donated millions, impressed by her vision. Hundreds of students benefited. Many were first-generation college students, now interning at Fortune 500 firms. Samantha personally met with cohorts, mentoring them about leadership, persistence, and ethics. At Delta, changes deepened. Angela Washington, the independent ombudsman, uncovered decades of ignored complaints. Dozens of employees were disciplined, policies rewritten, and transparency measures introduced. Every quarter, Delta published diversity statistics, showing progress in hiring and promotions. Customer trust slowly rebuilt. Even skeptics admitted the airline was leading the industry in reform. Robert Sterling, once shaken by the scandal, grew into an advocate. At a global aviation summit, he credited Samantha. "She forced us to see what we ignored." Today, Delta is stronger because she demanded accountability. For Samantha, the most meaningful feedback didn't come from executives, but from ordinary travelers. Letters poured in, a Latina lawyer who was finally treated respectfully in business class, a Black veteran who no longer faced suspicion at boarding, a Muslim family who felt welcome during international travel. Each story reminded Samantha why the fight mattered. Still, she knew progress was fragile. Bias doesn't vanish overnight. At speaking events, she repeated, "Real change requires vigilance. Systems must be designed for fairness, not left to individual bias." She partnered with universities to develop training curricula for corporate leaders. Soon, industries outside aviation, finance, healthcare, retail, adopted similar reforms. 1 year after the incident, Samantha stood again at O'Hare International Airport, but this time on a different mission. Delta unveiled a plaque recognizing their new civil rights program, dedicating it to passengers whose courage demanded justice. They invited Samantha to speak. She stepped to the podium, looking at the audience of employees, executives, students, and travelers. "What happened to me was painful, but pain can be a teacher. The true test is what we build after the pain." Delta has chosen reform over denial. I hope others follow. Because discrimination doesn't just wound individuals, it erodes trust in our entire society. The crowd applauded. But for Samantha, the real satisfaction came afterward, when a young employee approached quietly. "Miss Williams, I'm the first in my family to work in aviation. I want you to know because of the changes you fought for, I feel safe and proud here." Samantha smiled, knowing the ripple effect was real. One confrontation, one demand for dignity, had shifted a giant corporation, and with it, thousands of lives. Months passed, and Samantha's influence only grew. She was invited to keynote business schools, where students saw her not only as a successful CEO, but as proof that leadership could be used to drive justice. She told them, "Courage isn't just standing up when it's easy, it's standing when you know the cost might be everything." Her story inspired documentaries, podcasts, and leadership case studies. But behind the spotlight, Samantha kept her focus grounded. She still reviewed logistics operations, met with warehouse staff, and traveled to check facilities. She wanted her employees to see that even at the top, their CEO valued every link in the chain. In her personal life, the experience had changed her too. She became more vocal about mentoring women and minority entrepreneurs. Every month, she hosted small dinners with startup founders, offering advice she had once longed for when she was building her own business with little more than determination and late nights. Meanwhile, Jennifer Hayes' transformation was ongoing. After months of volunteering, she began working as a diversity trainer at a consulting firm. Her painful mistake became a tool to teach others. "I thought I was fair," she admitted to trainees. "But I carried unconscious bias that hurt people. It cost me my career, but it taught me to see." Some found her story difficult to hear, but many said it was the wake-up call they needed. Samantha followed her progress quietly, glad accountability had led to growth. Rachel Thompson's story unfolded differently. Her suspension turned to termination, but instead of retreating, she joined a local community organization. At first resentful, she gradually confronted her prejudice and began working to build bridges. Years in customer service gave her skills to mediate disputes, and though she could never undo her past, she used her time to create positive change in her neighborhood. Robert Sterling transformed as well. Once a cautious corporate leader, he became a visible champion of inclusion, publishing op-eds and calling on other CEOs to embrace transparency. Many peers privately grumbled, but Robert pointed to Delta's recovering stock price, rising customer loyalty, and new contracts as proof that justice and profit were not opposites. Through it all, Samantha kept her eye on the future. Her company expanded into Europe while solidifying its hold in Asia. The scholarship fund doubled in size, funding engineers, doctors, and entrepreneurs. Each success story fueled her determination. One afternoon, she returned to Detroit for a community event. In the gymnasium of her old high school, she addressed hundreds of students. She looked at their eager faces and remembered her own youth, nervous, hopeful, often told her dreams were too big. "Look at me," she told them. "If I can stand here as the CEO of a global company, so can you in your own dreams. Don't let the world shrink your vision. Work harder than anyone, and when the door doesn't open, build your own door." The students erupted in applause, but the most touching moment came when a girl approached afterward. She whispered, "I saw you on the news." "Now I want to be a pilot." Samantha knelt and replied, "Then be the best pilot you can be, and when you're in that cockpit, remember, you belong there." By the second anniversary of the incident, Delta had become known not for scandal, but for reform. Other airlines followed suit. Customer experiences improved. And though discrimination had not vanished, the systems to fight it were stronger. Samantha often reflected, one night of humiliation had sparked an industry-wide shift. Her legacy, however, was not the viral video or even the corporate reforms. It was the quiet, everyday victories. The students funded, the employees treated with dignity, the travelers boarding flights without fear of bias. Those were the wins she cherished most. On a spring morning, Samantha boarded another flight, this time with no cameras, no lawyers, no executives. Just her and her briefcase. She settled into her first-class seat quietly. The attendants treated her with simple courtesy, the kind every traveler deserves. As the plane rose above the clouds, she reflected on how far things had come. The scholarship fund now supported hundreds of students nationwide. Some were graduating, already working in companies that once overlooked talent like theirs. Letters arrived weekly, a young engineer at NASA, a lawyer fighting housing discrimination, a doctor serving low-income families. Each story reminded Samantha why she had fought so hard. At Williams Global Logistics, growth was steady. The Tokyo deal had been only the beginning. Her leadership team handled operations smoothly, freeing her to focus more on advocacy. She had become a bridge between business and social justice, proof that the two could strengthen each other. She thought of Jennifer Hayes and Rachel Thompson, once symbols of prejudice, now examples of accountability and redemption. Their stories reminded Samantha that people could change, and that progress meant lifting even those who once caused harm. And she thought of Destiny, the little girl on that flight months earlier, clutching a business card like it was a golden ticket. Destiny had sent her a drawing of a rocket labeled Destiny's Space Company. Samantha kept it framed in her office. It reminded her that success wasn't just personal, it was generational. It was about opening skies for those coming after. As the plane touched down, Samantha smiled. She had turned humiliation into power, outrage into reform, and pain into a platform for progress. The fight against discrimination wasn't over, but it was further along than it had been. Her story had begun with being told she didn't belong. Now, everywhere she went, she carried proof that she, and countless others, absolutely did. Change, she realized, doesn't come all at once. It comes from moments, choices, and courage, one stand at a time, one voice refusing to be silenced. And when enough voices rise together, the world cannot help but listen. Somewhere out there, Samantha knew, a little girl like Destiny was dreaming. And because of everything that had happened, those dreams had a clearer path to soar.